It's time for ROTD Weekend. I have been very excited about beans lately, and I'm going to tell you why. So, Marty doesn't like legumes like beans very much, and so when I want to have them, because I like them, I tend to make them part of my lunch more than adding them to our dinners. But I hesitate to do that because if I open a whole can of beans, I'm not going to eat the whole can at lunch. But lately I've been doing it anyways, and I have figured out something really great that I just love and have been doing every few days now. So my favorite for this is the canned cannellini beans. They're also called white kidney beans. I just like them. They're very soft with mild flavor, and so they're really versatile, and especially for what I'm going to tell you to do. So first, I open the can of beans and put them in a little colander or fine mesh sieve and rinse them so they don't have that liquid on them. I know actually a lot of people save that liquid to use as like an egg substitute or other things. So if you save it, you can save it. I don't save it. And then from the colander, I take the beans that I want to have that day. Like if I'm making a salad or something, then I put those beans on my salad. The rest of the beans that are left in the colander, I transfer to a little container with a lid. Now this is critical. I used to just leave them in the can and put plastic wrap over it, but oh no, that sad little can of beans with the plastic wrap, I'd see it in the fridge a couple days later and I'd be like, oh, are these still safe to eat? This doesn't look very appetizing, or they'd knock over and spill because the plastic wrap doesn't really stop that. So I stopped leaving them in the can and instead put them into a container with a lid. Okay, so I'm having the beans with my lunch today, and then I have the beans in the container with the lid. But quite often, before even putting the lid on, I take a fork and mash up those beans in the container. To that, I either add garlic powder or fresh chopped up garlic, salt, and a little bit of toasted sesame oil. And my thinking here is that something like hummus often has tahini in it, which is like sesame paste. And so my little bit of toasted sesame oil is a little bit like that. And mix that together with a little bit of salt and pepper, and it's kind of like hummus. And so now I have this little container of like a bean dip that's super tasty that I can have as a snack later or the next day. Just go in there with a tortilla chip or a cracker or some carrot sticks, and it's a delicious little snack ready for me there that I'm more likely to just snack on than if it was a container of beans, which I need like a purpose for, you know? Okay, so that I love, but there's something I love even more. Now, if that is a nice garlicky little hummus dip there, quite often, if by the next day I haven't already snacked on it, I turn it into a really delicious, creamy salad dressing. So what you do is just get a little bit of water, drizzle it into that bean dip, drizzle, drizzle, stir, stir until it's like the thickness of a creamy salad dressing. Taste it. You might want to add more garlic powder. You might want to add more salt and drizzle it on a salad. You are not going to believe how good this is. You could also add a little lemon juice. You could do olive oil instead of the water. Any of these things are possible, but it is really, really tasty, really easy. And to me, the happiness is that I now open that can of beans if I want some with my lunch because I know that I'm going to make some nice snacks and dressings out of them and they're going to get used up. No sad little can of beans with plastic wrap in my fridge ever anymore. Now I'm going to turn to my guest today. I am replaying an interview from before because I am in Canada right now. Well, as you're listening, I'm in Canada. I'm recording this before I go. And so it just made my life a little bit easier to play an interview from before. And this guest is someone who really dislikes waste and would love what I just said about those beans. I am positive she is the author of the Migraine Relief Plan and the Migraine Relief Plan Cookbook. It is Stephanie Weaver. Here is our conversation now. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Christine. Great to be here.
So you had a cookbook come out a little over a year ago that I would love for you to tell people about. I know we talked about it before on the show, but any new listeners haven't. And I just think it's such a fascinating topic. And if anybody doesn't know that there is even this book out there, they need to hear about it from you.
Sure. So it's called the Migraine Relief Plan Cookbook, and it's the follow-up to my lifestyle guide, the Migraine Relief Plan, which came out in 2017. And it's a way for people to modify their lifestyle, like kind of do experiments on themselves in a sense to figure out what exactly are my migraine triggers and what is it within my sphere of control. So migraine is a neurobiological disease. It's lifelong. There's no cure for it. There's great medications for it. But there's a lot of things that people can change about their lifestyle, whether that's drinking more water or making sure they're getting regular sleep or avoiding, noxious smells that set them off. Some things we can avoid, like one of my big ones is big weather changes will always give me a migraine attack. But and also then the food component, some people, maybe 30% we think of people do have actual triggers, food triggers that will cause an attack. Like I can no longer have fish sauce, which is super sad for me because I love it. And then other people, it's really just about eating anti-inflammatory because the less inflammation in your brain, the less likely you are to trigger into an attack. So it's a kind of a combo thing. The cookbook came out a year and a half ago. It's full color, beautiful images by a photographer named Laura Bashar, who writes a fantastic food blog called Family Spice. And it's over 100 recipes. Lots of them are super simple to make. I have a bulk cooking chapter, things like that. So I really try to consider that the audience might not be feeling very well a good part of the time. And so what can you make in advance? What can you freeze, et cetera?
Oh, I love all of that. And I know a lot of what you do is taking into account that you might not be feeling well on a given day, but you still need to eat and working that into a routine and a system. And then you mentioned testing things on yourself. I'm super curious. How did you find out that fish sauce was one of your triggers?
So my plan book, you actually go through a process of slowly getting onto the recipe portion of it and then gradually adding foods back. So fermented foods are a known trigger for people who are sensitive to them. Like, for example, I love sauerkraut. It's great for you. If I have a tablespoon, I'm okay. If I have more than that, I can start to feel my head going. Fish sauce, I've just learned any cuisine that has fish sauce in it, I just can't have it. When you learn what works for you and you eat that way most of the time, then it's kind of clear when something pops up, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have, okay, I guess I can't buy that yummy pad thai from Trader Joe's that was in the freezer that I amped up with other stuff because there was just enough of that fish sauce in there to throw me into sadness.
And it can be like debilitating for a long time. It's not just like, oh, I feel a little off for a bit. Like this is like
I'm lucky in that mine don't go 4 or 5 days and I'm not chronic and intractable where I have friends that they literally have had pain every day for the last 10, 15 years. It's super difficult. So it's one of the things that people don't understand. It's not just a headache. It is a whole cluster of symptoms. I get dizziness. I have extreme light sensitivity. Sometimes people have, their heads are just really sensitive. So you can't wear your hair up or have anything on your head. Some people like to have like a tight hat on. Other people can't stand it. So everyone is individual because it is neurological, right? So everybody's brain is different. Everybody's body is different. So it's a challenge, but the purpose of the first book was to help people figure out their particular pattern. So then you feel a little bit more agency around your life and you're able to sort of control and make decisions around the things that'll make you feel the best most of the time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So you are an incredibly creative person and a wonderful writer. And if anybody has looked at these books, they know that. And so I want you to be able to tell people that you have a new creative writing endeavor that they can find more of you in. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, thanks. So if you're on Substack, which is a newsletter app, it's the easiest way to find it is just to download the app to your phone, Substack, in case people aren't familiar with it. And my newsletter is called Fun to Be Around. So despite living with chronic illness and all these challenges, people still tell me I'm fun to be around. So that's the title of it. And I write a really short themed essay every week. And then I talk about what I've been watching and reading and eating. And usually there's either a very simple recipe, like a 3-ingredient lasagna that you can make, or a kitchen hack. And you can read it in like 2 to 3 minutes. It's super fast. And I jokingly call it the newsletter for people who hate newsletters because it's so short that you just can't help but read it and then you're done. So hopefully people will find it and enjoy it because it's been really enjoyable for me to write it.
Yeah, I will link to it in the show notes for people so they can find it. And I now need to go and dive into it because I want to know the 3-ingredient lasagna, which I know. I don't know what the recipe you've chosen is, but I'm pretty sure it's not that. But you did bring a secret recipe for me today, right?
I did. Are you ready for me to tell you what it is?
Yes. Let's do it.
Okay, so it's my carrot ginger soup, which is actually the cover image on the cookbook. And the reason I chose it is because it is deceptively simple. Like you wouldn't think something with just carrot and ginger would be so incredible, but there's something about the soup. Every time I make it, I think, gosh, I have to make this more often. I serve it at parties. People can't believe it's plant-based. And it's also just loaded with anti-inflammatory whole foods goodness. So there's all these reasons why it's super tasty. And I came up with it because a neighbor in my old neighborhood had brought me some soup. I think I gave her something. And so she in return brought a jar of soup over. And I said, I need this recipe. She sent me the recipe, and then I had to modify it for the migraine folks. So instead of onions, it uses leeks. And I don't think there were a whole lot of other changes I had to make, but just sort of finessing it, using white pepper instead of black pepper, sometimes those ingredients, just to get that really incredible flavor that I was looking for. So tell me what you need me to tell you, and I'll get started.
First, I have like many things to say about that. I have never made a carrot ginger soup before, but I've had them in restaurants, and I am with you. Like there's something, carrot ginger combination. I think there's ginger and carrot cake probably too. Like it's just something. So I'm super excited. I've never made one before, so that's very, very cool. But I want to know, are onions a trigger, but leeks are not?
Yeah, so one of the crazy sort of frustrating things about the migraine diet is that it's almost like somebody threw darts at a dartboard. And so like every berry is fine except this particular berry. And most of the allium family, which is shallots and garlic and leeks and onions are okay, but actual onions can be a trigger for people, which makes it really hard for them to buy off the shelf broths and things like that because onions are pretty much in everything. Mm-hmm. So I did not cook a lot with leeks prior to finding this whole diet situation. I was diagnosed when I was 53, so it was very late in life, but I was already full on into my food blog and already was changing recipes for health reasons. So it seemed like if anybody could come up with a set of recipes that would really be yummy and also work for people, it would be me. So that's kind of why I set the challenge for myself.
Yeah.
And so the leeks are, just something I think maybe because they seem more expensive for people or they're a little harder to clean or people just don't consider them. Not like, French cooking, it's very common to use leeks, but here not so much.
Yeah, no.
So that's one of the swaps that I made for this recipe.
Yeah, no, it's true. I hadn't even, maybe in like a chicken leek soup or something when I was a kid, but it wasn't until I was spending time in England that leeks start. And then they're in things, but there's also just like braised leeks. And there's just recipes where leeks are this like star. And I was like, what is going on? So yeah, I actually love them now, but nobody else seems to eat them around here in Florida. So, okay, yeah, tell me, where do you start making this soup?
So I'm going to give a couple of tips beforehand. So when you're cleaning the leeks, so this recipe, I'll go through all the ingredients in a moment, but when you're cleaning the leeks, it's a great Jamie Oliver tip. If you slice them lengthwise starting at the root, but don't separate them, you can hold them under running water and kind of open up, fan out all the little layers, and because there's always soil inside a leek. Mm-hmm. Now, if you buy cleaned ones at Trader Joe's, which I often do because it's easier, there's usually still a little bit of soil at the very top, so you do want to check those. Mm-hmm. But that green portion, I like to throw in a bag in the freezer for when I'm making stock. So nothing goes to waste. And if you get a leek that has the roots on it and you have any kind of outdoor garden, you can actually just stick that thing in the ground and it'll grow another leek for you.
Really?
So no food waste. Love that. And then the other piece I wanted to talk about was the ginger root and turmeric. So one of the things that has always sort of frustrated me about using fresh ginger is oh man, I got to peel it and then I got to grate it and then the thing goes bad and, or you buy the jar, but then it's got preservatives in it and I'm not loving that, right? Mm-hmm. So what I do is I have this little mini chopper that's just reserved for my ginger and my turmeric. I buy the roots, very roughly chop them just so they fit in there basically. And I just chop it up as finely as the chopper will do, just the ginger by itself. And then I will make little rolls of it in like a little Ziploc bag, like the snack size Ziploc bags, and put it in the freezer in a larger bag. Same with the turmeric root. Now, when a recipe says you use about an inch, usually it's like an inch of ginger, meaning you're measuring that knob. You just take an inch of your little roll and you snip it off, and you've got fresh ginger, fresh turmeric, usually for several months. And then I'll buy another round once I finally run out of them. So that's my little hack for always having fresh ginger and fresh turmeric available.
I love that idea. So I was just in Amsterdam in December, where I'm not sure why, but everywhere you go, you can get fresh ginger tea, and they just put some slices, like big slices of ginger with hot water, and bring it to you. That's all it is, but amazing. And so I've been on this ginger kick where I'm buying all this ginger, but then I never get through it all. And I just end up throwing the whole things into the freezer. But this is what I should do, right? Use it fresh until it's like close to throwing into the freezer, and then chop it up like that and have it.
Sure. And you don't have to peel it. Everybody says you have to peel it. You don't even have to peel it.
Oh.
You just wash it, make sure it's clean. If you wanted to use it as slices, I would do thin slices in one baggie and then the minced in another, so you can make your teas. And that way you always have it fresh, but it's so much easier to handle that way.
So when you chop it, you don't peel it before chopping it? You just
Nope.
stick it? Oh my God. That is such a game changer.
Yes, I've changed your life.
Yeah, no, I
welcome.
think you have. Yes, I think you have. So when you then add it to, like, I don't know, a stir fry or whatever, or the soup, you don't end up with, even if you're not pureeing it, you don't end up with like little, I don't know what I want to call them, grainier bits or anything. They're just fine. They're chopped up.
Occasionally you'll find a fiber will show up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't bother me. So fiber's good for us. So eat around it, pull it out. If you have fussy kids, maybe that would be an issue. But this particular soup gets pureed, so it doesn't matter anyway. But most stir fries, you just don't even notice it. Same with, you could also do this with garlic, I suppose. I don't bother, but because I'm just always using the fresh garlic. But for me, the ginger root, especially because it's not easy to handle, like it's off shapes and it's got weird, so you do clean it. You just wash it, make sure it's clean. Usually I pull the little different knobs off it to make sure there's no dirt inside. And then it just goes and chunks into that little food chopper, which then gets stained with the turmeric. So I don't really use it for anything else, but it's fantastic because then I pull it out when I need it and it works really well.
I love this. I love it so much. Thank you so much. Okay.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, now I just want to go do this. But yes, let's hear the rest of the soup.
So this you can make this to be completely plant-based. It is dairy-free, but if you use vegetable broth, it would be completely plant-based. So it's great for parties because no one will ask, no one knows, but you have this delicious soup. And then if you know your friend's a vegan or your friend's dairy-free, you can lean over and go, hey, by the way, you can have that soup, which is very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you do is you start with a large soup pot. Like I have a big Dutch oven that I use for this. 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil kind of on. I usually heat up the pan for a couple minutes before I put the oil in, so you're not overheating the oil. And then once the pan's hot, you put the oil in. It only takes maybe 30 seconds. You want to just see it start to shimmer. Then you add your 2 pounds of carrots, which only need to be scrubbed and roughly chopped. They don't even really need to be peeled because you're going to be pureeing this thing. And I do recommend using only orange carrots for this. Colored carrots work fine, but the soup comes out kind of a yucky color. Yeah. So you've been warned. That's the only thing that I really, consider about that.
So you're leaving the peels on the carrots, which I do this with my potatoes now quite often if they're super fresh and not green, and I'm doing whatever, I leave the peels on all the time for even mashed potatoes. I still peel the carrots, and I'm guessing that I don't need to. I put peels in stocks and broths, so they're edible.
Sure. Yeah. So for me, it's like, how quickly can I make a recipe and what shortcuts can I do? You absolutely could peel them, but I normally just lop off the very top of it. And if the tip is a little weird, take that off. And then if they're just scrubbed, they're fine because it's just a rough chop because all this is getting pureed. So as little work as possible is my goal, especially someone who lives with chronic illness. It's like, how fast can I get this in the pan so that I'm done?
So every single recipe that we see everywhere that's like 2 carrots, comma, peeled, we can ignore that when we feel like it. It's just not going to matter.
Sure, just as long as you scrub them. And if they're organic, actually, any little soil that might be attached to an organic vegetable has got some good microbiome stuff for us anyway. But yeah, so you've got your carrots in there, and you're sautéing them with your 2 large leeks, which have also been roughly chopped. As I mentioned, I save the tops for super stock. 2 cloves of garlic peeled, maybe chopped a little bit. Doesn't really matter because, again, the whole thing's getting pureed. And you're sautéing that then you add in your 2 tablespoons of fresh ginger root, and 2 teaspoons of cumin powder. So if you have fresh cumin in your freezer like I do, I will probably just put like a half an inch worth of my little, roll that I've made, and 2 teaspoons of cumin. So it gives that warming spice is happening with the turmeric and the ginger and the cumin.
Mm-hmm. Can you use, I've never used fresh turmeric before. Can you use powdered if you don't have that?
Yeah, so this calls for powdered because it's much more common for people to have the powdered. Mm-hmm. But if you happen to have turmeric in your freezer because you followed my little mini chopping tutorial that we just talked about, then you can just use, a half an inch or so of that. It's essentially part of it. Turmeric and ginger are both anti-inflammatory spices, so they're great to have in our diets. And cumin as well has a lot of medicinal purposes and qualities. That would be ground cumin, not seeds, for this recipe.
So ginger and turmeric are anti-inflammatory. Are the powdered versions anti-inflammatory as well, or just the fresh ones?
Yes, all of it is.
All of it is. Okay.
It's always better if you can do fresh, but realistically, turmeric root's not cheap, and powdered turmeric is much less expensive to buy. So, so that's what's going to be in more people's houses, and it's completely fine. But definitely, you're getting anti-inflammatory benefits with the soup, which is great.
Great, yeah.
So if you like a little bit of spice, a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes works really well. If you're not sure, I recommend 1/8 of a teaspoon. If you have anybody in your household who does not like spice at all, I would leave it out. And then you can always, my husband basically adds sriracha to everything I cook. So, he just gets it to his heat level, and we're both happy, right? And then the last spice is a half a teaspoon of white pepper. And the reason I use white pepper versus freshly ground black pepper is for this particular recipe, these spices are a little bit more delicate and sweet. And I find that in savory foods with kind of a sweet tinge, the white pepper is a little bit more mellow. So it still gives you a bit of a peppery flavor, but it's not as aggressive as a black pepper. And you just want to saute that until everything, the leeks are beginning to soften. You've got your spices in there for 1 to 2 minutes, and you want to make sure that the spices are in with the oil, with heat, because that what's called blooms the spices. It means it brings the oils out of the spices and the flavor. So you really don't want to skip that step. Then you add your broth. So 4 cups of low sodium chicken broth or low sodium vegetable broth. Either works fine. You won't really notice a difference in taste unless you've got a vegan in the household and they'll be like, you use chicken broth, so they can taste it. That's completely fine. So you just bring it to a boil and then down to a simmer and just uncovered. And then you're waiting for the carrots to get fork tender. So that takes about 30 minutes. So this is something you just, once you get it on the stove, you can just put a timer on it. Make sure you know that it's really at a simmer, which is just, I like to see a few bubbles breaking the surface. Otherwise, it's not quite hot enough and it might not cook in that 30 minutes, but you don't want it to be doing more than that, or often it will start to boil too much of the liquid off. 30 minutes, fork tender. Then I've got a tip for using coconut milk. So there's a can of coconut milk. Usually I recommend the full fat. So what I do is put some water in one of those heavy glass Pyrex measuring cups. Just like 1.5 inches, 2 inches of water, heat it up for about 3 minutes, depending on your microwave. And then I put the coconut milk can upside down in that hot water a few minutes before I want to use it, because full fat coconut milk will have a lot of, it's hard at the top because it's hard even at room temperature because of the saturated quality of that fat. And it's hard to get it off the top of the lid when you open it, right? So if you do this little pre-melty trick, once you open it, it all just goes into the pan, no problem.
Oh, I love that.
If you still have solids, you want to let the heat melt those solids, and you just stir it all. And this is when you're at the pureeing stage. So you can do it 2 ways. You can do an immersion blender, which works fine, but it's not going to give you that super silky quality and texture that really the soup just is like so delicious because it's of the smoothness of it. Or you can put it into a regular blender. It's a lot of volume. So what I tend to do, I have a big Vitamix, but I'll do like half at a time. And so I pour it actually into a giant bowl after I puree it so that I can mix it all together. Because sometimes you get like more liquid with one batch and more solids with the other. And so you want to make sure that you're actually blending it all together. And then the last ingredient is either finely chopped cilantro, about 1/4 of a bunch, or a bunch of fresh Italian flat leaf parsley, finely chopped. The reason that I do both options is there are people who genetically hate the taste of cilantro because it tastes like soap to them. But those fresh herbs just add this beautiful brightness to the soup that I don't recommend skipping. And the great thing is you just put those, I just put in the food processor. Just pulse until they're finely chopped, stems and all. It's all edible. It's all delicious, and it works just great. And then you've got beautiful soup that you can serve. I often freeze a couple cups in 1-cup containers. So sometime when I'm not feeling well, oh, I've got carrot ginger soup in the freezer. I'll pull that out. So, and also ginger is a anti-nausea herb. So it's great for if, there's often nausea associated with migraines. So there's an additional benefit to it as well.
Oh, I love this. It sounds delicious and easy.
Easy.
So simple and easy to make, but lots of flavor and health benefits going on all at once. It's wonderful. So
absolutely.
This recipe is in your cookbook?
Correct. The Migraine Relief Plan Cookbook. It's actually the cover image because it was so pretty.
Yeah.
And then if you want to stir in, you can stir in a little bit of heavy cream or sour cream or coconut cream. Mm-hmm. That's what's kind of swirled on the top in the picture. But that is a nice addition if you want. It doesn't require it. It's a very luscious soup that just is, so warming. And especially this time of year when you're looking for a warming soup, it's fantastic.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. I will link to the cookbook for anybody who wants to go and see the picture and buy a copy so they have the original recipe from you. Thank you so much, Stephanie. This has been really wonderful.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me. Enjoy your soup.
Thank you. So I have to tell you that since that original conversation with Stephanie, I have fallen in love with her Substack. You have to go read it. It is inspiring and gives me chills all the time. I also will say that her 3-ingredient lasagna recipe is very similar to something that I used to make in college, except that I used to do a layer of cottage cheese in there as well. Hers is cheese ravioli layered with cheese and sauce, and mine had a layer of just a tub of cottage cheese, just a little bit in there to kind of mimic the ricotta. I used to do that when I lived in college. So that is a really, really fun, easy recipe that you should check out on Stephanie's Substack, Fun to Be Around. I'm also going to let you know that Stephanie has a memoir coming out soon called Bittersweet. So I'm going to get in touch with her and see if she wants to be a guest again, because I always love talking with her so much. And I know you love hearing from her too. So be on the lookout for that. If you don't hear about it from me, go and check out Stephanie's Substack and know that she has a memoir coming up soon. Okay, so you know that I am in Canada, so I am not cooking this week, but I want to tell you about something exciting that I am doing. My team, the people who work for my business, we are all gathering together for the first time ever. We are meeting up in Montreal for 4 days to work in the same place together. I am so excited. That's happening this week. They are such an intelligent, creative group of women, and I can't even imagine what it's going to be like, but I am delighted and excited and can't wait. And we're going to be trying to remember to take some pictures and some video. So hopefully if we remember to do that, and if we all like what we shoot and what we see, then I will share some of that with you after we get back. But that is what's going on, not in my kitchen this week. We will be in Montreal, hanging out, eating great food, and learning together, brainstorming together. It's going to be a real treat. Now, even though I am not at home, there are things going live on the website. You guys know I'm always working in advance, so even when I'm not here, there is new content going up on the sites. This week, I have an Instant Pot paella recipe with shrimp and sausage. So this is just a super easy weeknight meal. You're throwing everything in there except for the shrimp, and it cooks in the Instant Pot, the rice and all the nice spices and ingredients, and then you stir the shrimp in at the end, and they just cook from the residual heat in the Instant Pot. It's perfect. I love this recipe, and that is going live on Cook the Story on Monday. And then on the Cookful on Monday, we have a really nice chicken breast recipe. It's for easy, creamy chicken Florentine. So it's got spinach and a creamy sauce. It's really, really nice, easy, delicious, but you could totally do this for date night or something just as much as you could for a weeknight dinner. So that chicken Florentine is going live on the Cookful on Monday. And what am I telling you about this week? Well, of course, the Instant Pot Paella and the Chicken Florentine are on the menu this week. I'm also doing some grilled chicken wings, and some shrimp recipes, other shrimp recipes beyond the paella. And an air fryer vegetable. So stay tuned because there's something new coming out every single day. If you're not already subscribed to the show, make sure you do that so that you get a new recipe every single day. Go on your phone to your favorite podcast app and search for Recipe of the Day. You will find me there, or go to cookthestory.com/ROTD, and there are buttons across the top for Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You tap on those and you can subscribe or follow there. And I will put all the links to everything that I've talked about today in the show notes for this podcast episode. But if you're not seeing them there or aren't sure, the other place you can go is to cookthestory.com/ROTD. Everything there is arranged by date. So it's helpful to know that today is July 5th of 2025. You click on that and you get taken to all the links to all of Stephanie's wonderful stuff. Everything that I've told you about, it is all there for you. I want to say a big thank you to Stephanie for being an amazing guest, and a big thank you to you for listening. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookville.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.